How are you doing? How are you doing? Let's get a little bit of energy. How are you doing? How's the afternoon going? We hope that the sessions have been fantastic. We have a really great panel in front of us, and we're looking forward to diving into that conversation. But I would like to break the ice with you guys before panelists get into the conversation. I mean, African music has been having a moment, not just on the continent, but globally. How many of us here are familiar with some of the genres that have broken out, Amapiano and Afrobeat? By a show of hands, how many of us? Yeah. Interesting. The rest of us, we haven't had African music? Anyway, that's why our panel is here today. And this plenary session is really important because, like I mentioned, African music is taking off. African artists are beginning to get platformed on global stages, and it's important that we ensure they get their fair pay, and when they get their fair pay, every other person in the industry can get their fair pay. Before we came on stage, I was asking my guests, why do they do the work that they do, and why is it very important to them? Let's start with Afi.
Hi, so my name is Afi. I'm working for 1RPM as the country manager. So I was saying that I'm in the job that I'm currently doing because first I'm passionate about music, and the second thing is I'm from the Francophone region, and I think we have like so many talented artists that deserve to be here on the global scale, and that's why I'm doing the work that I'm doing right now, because I need those voices to be heard.
Thank you, Afi. When Chaye walked in, I had Foza call him handsome boy. Do you agree? Chaye, please.
Hello everybody. So I'm Chaye. I'm from Benin, West Africa. I work as an International Development Officer for Africa at SACEM. SACEM is the leading collective management organization in the music field. And I used to be a rapper and a cultural entrepreneur back in the days. So I'm an artist at heart. I've been there, I've done that. I've walked in their shoes, in your shoes. So for me, where I'm now, it's very important that we can win as African. So that's what I'm trying to do each and every day. And that's why I'm here.
Thank you so much. Foza?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Sorry, my voice is a bit, but I find it sexy because I'm going to be talking a lot of boring stuff today.
Absolutely, and her outfit too.
Yeah, I got to give you the sexy bedroom voice so you get what we're saying. I'm a creative economy lawyer, which means that I work in the legal space across film, music, sports, gaming, across the continent. I do what I do because I have a passion to retain ownership on the continent, both economic ownership, both artistic ownership, and also the sense of pride for culture on the continent, because the biggest thing that the music or the film or whatever we have on the continent is soft power, and that redefines who we are as a continent.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I'd like to go back to Afi. In the intro, I mentioned that African music is having a moment, but also it's important to note that these big stars and these breakout moments are concentrated in just smaller parts of the continent. South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Rwanda has also had great music. I want you to contextualize for us, what does Francophone scene look like?
Okay, so that's a broad question. So for Francophone right now, so we are currently adapting to the digital. So we recently have new platforms, streaming platform opening in the continent and especially in the Francophone region. So artists used to be focused on YouTube and are starting to move gradually to newer platforms. And for those platforms, sorry, my subscription, sorry, my French is coming out. So it's really difficult for some people to have access to the subscription because they don't have like credit card and all that. Some platforms are trying to adapt to the market by providing mobile money solution, but there are only a few that are doing that. The major ones are still doing banking and all that. So it's really difficult for like the people that are listening to artists to go on this platform to stream and have like help the artists generate money from that. So it's really a broad question. I think during the conversation we will get into
Yeah.
the details of that, but that's it for the Francophone. We are gradually moving to the streaming platform.
And I like that you brought streaming and revenue into the conversation. I mean, if you look at the global landscape, out of all the money that came from things like music copyrights, only 0.3% of it got to the African continent, and the bulk of this revenue is concentrated in South Africa and Nigeria. I want to bring you in, Chaye. Paint for us a picture and contextualize these numbers on what streaming revenue looks like on the continent for artists.
I think that firstly we have to go back to the basics because I've had some conversations during my stay here, and I think that there's still some confusion. When it comes to digital, there are two avenues in terms of income. There is the monetization that everybody's talking about, so distribution monetization, master rights monetizations. But people must also keep in mind that there is copyright monetization, meaning that when your songs are being played on digital streaming platforms, you are getting money, you are getting copyright royalties. And this is a sizable amount that I'm talking about because last year, the collective management organizations have generated more than 13 billions of euros. So it's very important to not overlook copyright royalty and to also understand that we are not playing in the same lane as distributor like 1RPM. So we are not competition. It's you are entitled to both revenues. Okay. That being said, as Afi mentioned, we are still, it's work in progress. The transition is on, but it's already interesting. We are already seeing digital revenues in the copyright ecosystem in Africa. Last year in Africa, we have generated 13 million of euros, so it's not that bad. It's interesting. It's a growth comparing to the last year. So we are on the right path, and right now, the main model is what we call the market-centric model, meaning that it's based on your market share. To make it simple, let's take this example. Let's say we have Spotify, it's just an example, which have generated this month 10 million of euros, and you have 10 millions of streamings this month. The 10 million of euros come from ad revenues and subscription revenues. That's what we call the freemium tier and the premium tier, okay? So when there are 10 million streams, that means that if you have made 1 million streams, you have made 10% of the streams, so you are taking 10% of the revenues. As simple as that. So that's the main model right now, and there are some evolutions that we are seeing. There are some changes that are being considered that we'll talk about later.
Thank you so much. Foza, I want to bring you in. When we were talking backstage, you were telling me your work is an intersection of politics and policy. Contextualize that for us.
Interesting. Because Chaya says something, as regards like the market-centric, and I remember, and Afi spoke about the emergence of digital platforms on the continent. I'm trying to be politically correct.
You don't have to.
Speak your mind. Just
Nina
speak your
Simone
mind.
says art is a reflection of the times.
Yeah, I don't want to be fired. I'm trying to raise money now, so I feel like, you said that at Music Access, whatever. But anyways, this platform came into Africa. Remember, they came into Africa, contracted a few of us to help them advocate to build the platform on the continent. Some of us who have the trust of right holders went to them, said, look, we're trying to build something for us, whatever, give us the music, we'll build a platform, it's for us, by us, whatever jargon we sold to them was sorry. Because what now happened was the platform became big, the platform raised some money, and they did the market-centric revenue share, which now meant that all the money went to the big three. And the right holders that actually, the African right holders that actually built the prominence of the platform that led them to be able to raise the money suffered. So my role as a lawyer is to call out nonsense like that. I don't have music to release, so I'm not scared of being blacklisted, but I do have money to raise, so maybe that is beginning to come to that. But my work is we examine issues like that, begin to have conversations, we begin to push on whatever landscape we need to push on. So for example, Chaye's work directly feeds into the legal and political aspects. It's the collective management organization. We currently have an issue in Nigeria, for example, where we've been in an embryo for years in who is collecting what, what's collecting what, which now finally leads to one of Chaye's big brothers on the global continent kicking my CMO out of the conversation because you set a standard for us that you know we're never going to meet. Then you come and report us and say you're not fulfilling that agenda. Then you kick us out. Then you come to my country and try to set up office and take my rights out of the continent. So that's where I come in. Because I'm sure some people don't know that, so I just said it to you. So that's my work.
Thank you so much.
And I think that your concerns are very interesting because it's due to these remarks, these relevant remarks, that there are more and more voices in the markets who are crying for change, in fact, that the market model, the market-centric model is quite unfair. And that's why now people are considering changing that. So
and
yeah, that's a good point.
I want to stick with that shift in model where you have Deezer, you have Spotify, they're beginning to consider the artists and put them at the forefront. At least that's what the data is saying. Chaye, come in here. Are they or are they not?
Yeah. Once again, at the end of the day, it's a business, and we are facing big corporations, so they decide stuff, and then you have to cope with it. That's how it works. But at least there's been a try to implement a model called the user-centric, because for the moment, what you are listening is not being paid directly by the money you have handed over to the platform in terms of subscription. Meaning that, okay, I'm on Deezer, for instance, I pay 10 euros monthly, but what I'm listening won't necessarily go to the artist that what I'm paying won't necessarily go to the artist that I'm listening. And that's a big issue. And that's why people thought about bringing on board this user-centric model. But it hasn't been implemented yet. And all of a sudden, we heard that there was an alternative called the artist-centric model. And Spotify also did some change in its business model. So right now, you have this artist-centric model that is being tested in France by Deezer, championed by Universal, championed by Warner, championed also by Merlin. Merlin is the gathering of independent distributors in the digital field. Okay, and what this artist-centric stands for? It's the goal. What is being said is that, okay, they want to value more real artists. They did a first move that is interesting for the whole ecosystem because Deezer took down almost 26 million of tracks that were noise, in fact, not music, but that were competing for the money pot with the real content. And it was almost 13% of the whole catalog. So it was significant. So you will have different type of noise that people will hear, for instance, before sleeping. But they were getting the same amount of money as real music made by African creators or others. So I think this is a good move. Now they say they want to give a double boost to certain types of consumption. So if your song, your tracks are being played at least 1,000 times monthly by 500 unique listeners, you get this double boost. So that's all. That means that when they are setting the rates, you'll be benefiting more from the money raised this month. That's the same thing for tracks that have been actively searched by the users, meaning that it wasn't that you put a playlist on and then you hear randomly a track, is that you really search for the track. And because you search that track, that means that you are active and you really want it. So they are valuing these music. So that's what we are seeing right now. SACEM is the first CMO which really analyzed what would be the impact. And there are some quite good news for what is still called the world music repertoire, because we have seen that with this model, there's a raise of 7% in terms of revenues. So that means that since there are many African artists who are in this box, because it's a box, this world music genre, that means that could be benefiting them in a certain way. I don't know what you want to add.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to also add Spotify. So currently Spotify started remunerating artists starting at 1,000 streams. So below that, they will no remunerate the artists, because what they saw is that the artists will have 0.03 dollars, which they can't get out of the bank, and all those 0.03 compiled came up to $40 million. So they decided, instead of like sending those small amounts, they will use the 40 million to compensate better the people that are going above and streaming well on the platform.
So I have a counter to that, right?
Absolutely, I was expecting it.
Now, I put my song on Spotify, right? Whether it gets 1,000 views or not. On my Instagram, you forced me to use my image to put with Spotify on my Instagram. So whether you like it or not, at least 500 new people know about Spotify. But now you're not going to pay me my 0.03% because in your mind you believe that you cannot take more bank charges to pay me, but I've expended money in advertising you.
And also, I think that also puts smaller artists, or could put smaller artists at risk, because like you said, you have to search for that music, so that takes away that advantage that the algorithm brings.
So you know, for me, and this brings to my argument of, and you know, you made an interesting point saying SACEM is testing out a new model and whatever it is, and the question now for us in Africa, because now what they're using Africa for is the soft power. We might not be translating to economic revenue, but the soft power means something. It's valued. In the world of intellectual property, there's a value to the soft power. It makes you look cool. It makes you look diversity inclusive. It has to count for something, innit? Now, you know, then the question now comes, which is where advocacy comes in, is you have Merlin having this conversation. Why am I forced as an African, you know, distributor or publisher to join an independent Western coalition? You don't understand the struggles I'm facing on the internet, on the continent as such. Now, this argument I just put up, the other guy would be like, what's she talking about? But we understand that because there are more artists. There's less than 1% of the artists that we're shouting Africa to the world, blah, blah, blah. It's less than 1% doing that, meaning that there's another 99% suffering. So how are we taking care of that 99% is my conversation, which now brings it to the conversation of advocacy, which is the economics need to come and have a conversation. The academics need to have a conversation. The lawyers need to have a conversation. We need to start unionizing to have a conversation. TikTok says, you know, I have a strong thing with tech people because now what is happening especially on the African scene, is the tech fund is being lumped with the with the creative fund, and what you see happening is the tech people are cannibalizing the creative fund. But why is that happening? Is because we, the creative industry, have failed to unionize, to speak a common language, to say, look, we've done this research, we've seen that this market-centric doesn't work, this user-centric doesn't work, this artist-centric doesn't work, because this is the economics of the continent. This is the peculiarity of the continent, so this is what we're proposing. TikTok said, woke up, Universal and TikTok were fighting, and just said, bring down everything. Do I support what Universal is doing? Hell yeah, because, there's a separate argument for that. But what did that translate to? All the big songs on the African continent that are signed to Universal, whether you're signed with their affiliate or whatever, you just woke up and the song was no longer there. So is that a conversation to say when we're negotiating our contracts, do we need to start looking at a more designed way of looking at our contracts as opposed to doing the general template? But one person can't push this conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole point of this conversation, is that it's how African can maneuver in this ecosystem, how we can navigate to be successful with rules that we haven't made, but that we have to deal with. Like all artists, because what you are saying, a lot of artists in France have the same, are voicing the same concerns. So yes, as you mentioned, there is this need for advocacy, for unity in terms of moves, but there are also aspects, okay, how can we crack the code? In fact, now that we know the rules, how can we crack the code? What African creators should do in terms of audience development to position themselves in order to be winning in this new era. So
that's really interesting, because when Foza was speaking, she made mention that most of the time when you talk about African music, it's that 1% at the top, and we forget the reality of the 99.9%. Efe, I want you to paint a visual picture for us. Let's do differential diagnosis first, and then we can come to Foza on how to advocate for ourselves. But I want you to paint a visual picture for us. What is the reality of artists when it comes to market size and other factors, and how does it impact their revenue and their bottom line?
Okay, so right now, I think the artists right now are focused on numbers. So they want big numbers, they want to be everywhere, they want to people to talk about them, but they forget about the core thing is having an audience. So when you have an audience that knows your music, that like your music, they will follow you everywhere. And they need to start focusing on that. So they have for example, I would take the example of the Francophone because that's what I know. We don't have card. We use mobile money a lot, but we don't barely use card. So you cannot say, oh, go and stream my song on Spotify or Apple Music, because your people will not know. So they will need to focus on platforms that are more open, that offers maybe the freemium version, so that they can grow a steady audience on it first before they diverse to the biggest platform that are actually paid. So first, like I said, focus on building your core audience. When you have that, they will follow you everywhere. And that's what I think artists right now forget about for the Francophone region.
How visible are African artists on the global platform, and what are some of the challenges that impede their visibility?
I'm gonna be honest, we are not visible. Only the big one we know, like Burna Boy and all that, can be visible. But the core people, the core person that are visible on those apps are foreigners. So that's why I'm advocating for growing our audience on local platform, being big in your country first, try Africa, and then you can reach the global. Because those big platforms, they will not let smaller artists come up and it's not easy for you to just come up and be oh, I'm gonna be top #1 in France, I'm gonna be #1 in Senegal, unless you the song gets viral on social media. But it's really rare for you to bid on the bigger scale. You have to slowly grow your economics first on your local market, and then slowly grow through Africa, and then you can reach the global market. I know this might be that, I mean, that might take a longer time. Sometimes you can crack the code, like, and become viral, but you need to really focus, for me, on growing your audience locally and then steadily grow to the.
Foza, back to you. How then do we advocate? Because now we understand the differential diagnosis of different markets. How do we advocate for ourselves?
You know, I usually would say, like, to change a conversation, you need money, you need power, you need influence. We have influence. We're lacking in money, and we're lacking in power. But do we have where money can be gotten from? Yeah, we have the Afrinexim. You know, every other day you hear $100,000 million for creative industry, yada yada yada. You know, going on. Do we have power? Is the conversation we need to start having. We have, well, you know, 2030, we're going to be what? We're going to be about 1 billion on the continent. That is an increasing influence that we need to convert to power. So which now means that the first things we need to do is that everybody individually in their countries need to start unionizing and making sure that the government start listening. Because there are things that the private sector has done to the extent, which is why we now have Africa on a scale. Now we need the government to start having certain conversation. And I'm not talking about conversation of them coming to give us money or give us aid. It is putting certain regulations in place. I can't put regulation. That's the job of the government. Part of it is the AFCTA conversation, which allows for Africans to, you know, part of the things we're pushing for in that free trade is mobility within Africa. That's the conversation government should be having on our behalf. In Nigeria, for example, I mean, thankfully, the Lord is our strength, God is good. They finally gave us a ministry, and we're beginning to have these conversations and push policies, and I want to see that happening in multiple, because the truth is, on the bigger level, there's an agenda 2063 for culture and art policies on the bigger AU level. But the question now is, how many of us know that? You see, the power, and I said this when I went to France, is that the power to change this narrative from it starts with the creative. But the creatives have either just, you know, forgotten the power that they have and left it to people like myself, which I'm not popular. I'm standing here wearing a nice white hat. Nobody knows who I am. But if Davido enters here, or if Ishkev enters here, everybody's going to go to Ishkev and not talk to me anymore. So even if I'm saying the smartest thing, they're going to. So the question now is, what are the people around, like the professionals like ourselves, what are we doing to educate the creatives to make sure that they understand the role and the power that they play in terms of soft power to change conversation? 1, 2, it is, we need to drop the individualism. A lot of people have been fighting. I've made that mistake also, right? And, you know, individual fights is longer, it's not going to achieve anything. But when we band together, if Africa now begins to say that we're all going to disconnect from Spotify, or we're going to disconnect from a certain platform, what is the impact of that? Those are types of questions we need to start asking to demand for certain things to change, right? And the third one would be, I think we really need to bring back the academia into the discussion. Because I'll give you, for example, I personally don't believe in this chant that you can be independent in Africa. It is expensive. Was she trying to eat? Was she trying to have power? Was she trying to transport herself? And you're coming to tell me that I should spend $100,000 to push one song. The idea of independence in music is a Western idea that was forced on us. So it's not sustainable as it should be. So the question should now be that how have each country been managing without any external funding? How do we protect those flows of funding? Because right now, Afi, you'd agree, right now there's a huge artist development problem on the continent because the self-proclaimed be independent are refusing to drop money for the 5 years of artist development that needs to happen. The big ones have signed everybody that needs to be signed. Now everybody's stuck. The young guy that wants to keep 100% of zero because he has not read his book to know that this is a Western idea. You know, so these are the conversations, and this is what academy does to, you know, academic does for us to try and say, look, this is the data, this is what we're looking at, and this is how we should be thinking about this, because for Africa to change, we need African solutions.
Afi,
Sorry. I would like to. Yeah, she's right. Thank you. A round of applause.
she's spoken to a point that you guys like, yeah?
Yeah.
Go
And
ahead.
I'd like to highlight one of the aspects she's been talking about: the need for lobbying the policymakers, the governments, because there are some quick wins right now in Africa, which can be game changers in the digital field. We have the youth, we have the demographics, and we've invented mobile money. So the youth is ready, eager to consume content, but there is this barrier, the cost of internet. So the access of internet is still blocked, and it depends. It's on the government in fact, to change the situation. And once we have internet with better quality and cheaper, I can assure you that we'll have millions of streamers, of African streamers. It's a sure bet.
Yeah.
So it's just like like the movement that we've seen. We've seen in Latin America, and now we have many millions of Latin American consumers making their artists and their tracks big. We can do that easily if we can break this barrier, this entry barrier in terms of access to internet. And the governments can do that. So we need to help them understand what's at stake. That is about money that can really change the situation, change the tide economically when it comes to Africa.
Afi, what other barriers do we need to break for the sake of artists and their breakthrough?
As Chai mentioned, in the continent, the first thing is internet. The access to internet is really expensive. Access to bank. So, like for you to create a bank account, you need to provide like a salary. The salary form, like you have to show that, oh, you are working for this company, all that. But most artists don't have that. Like the younger people that are listening to, that are just students, they don't have bank accounts, so they cannot, even now we have like prepaid card, but it's still not as accessible as like mobile money for them. So we have those two issues. We need to come up with solutions that are like localized, that help artists, maybe like, if it's like a one shot, you have to download the song on your phone so that you don't have to restream it. So there are like local initiatives that allows you to buy the song, have it on your phone, listen to it when you want to have it, support your artist, and you can generate even more revenue that like going on streaming platform to stream. So for you to, for an artist, it's better for him to like support, like, I mean, I'm talking about upcoming artists and local artists. For you, when you just started, it's better for you to support those local initiatives when you are sure that you're gonna be paid directly. I mean, you have the platform, but you're gonna get paid directly through your currency, your own currency, and you're gonna get paid more compared to like the international streaming platform.
Mm-hmm. Chaye, I also want to find out from you, because we're now talking about solutions. You spoke about user-centric, you spoke about artist-centric. Are there existing or alternative models in the market that can help artists, particularly African artists, and their fair share?
There are no other models right now. I know that UNESCO is also conducting a study, is putting together a proof of concept. So they are working on building a DSP, so a platform, which will be operating on a fair basis. That will just be a beta test. So they want to run it to demonstrate, to show to the market, to the big players that another vision, another way, another business model is possible. So that's an ongoing conversation right now, and we can't wait for the results and see how it can be a game changer, how in terms of advocacy, it can also help us move the needle. But once again, when you have you have to deal with a situation, you must understand the rules and keep on learning them to try to crack the code to align your business so that you can win. So, for instance, you must be aware that the remuneration rates are not the same depending on the platforms. So there are platforms which are not paying that much, and others where you can get more decent numbers. As an artist, a creative, you must also understand that if you are just a small point in the whole ecosystem, if you're the smallest fish, then you won't get that much from the business model. So that's why it's important to think about when you are an artist, you are an African artist, to build around you a label. Then with this label, you could be doing licensing deals with bigger labels or major companies, and that will put you in a position that you will be getting more from the revenue share when it comes to the digital. In the copyright side, it's very important to join a CMO. You can also work with a publisher because those entities know how to chase the money. And when you are talking about digital streaming platforms, you are talking about big data. So we are overwhelmed by the digital sales reports, and it's important to build the relevant platforms that will enable you to track and to capture the value of your members. Samro mentioned last day that they have built now their in-house technology infrastructure because they know what they need, and they are trying to do their best to cater for the artist needs. That's what we've also done, and that's what put us in a position to really deliver. So we can really ensure that we are not leaving money on the table. That's also important in order to reach that goal that the creators understand that we need clean metadata, full metadata. So at least the names, the aliases, all the AKAs that you have, the right titles of the tracks, that's a good start point. And then there are other elements, and the people you are working with, your publisher, your label, will help you move forward. And as an artist, as Fosa has mentioned, it's important to understand the game, to know the rules. Even if you have a team around you, you must be educated so that you can move forward quicker and as one unit.
Foz, I want to bring you in, and I want you to contextualize what he's just said, but from a legal point of view, the role of partnership and data in leveling the playing field for African artists.
First of all, the data is extremely skewed and hidden from the African creator. So this is a call to the tech boys that are raising all the millions on the continent. Actually solve problems for us. Thank you very much. And one of the things that Chaye just said is like the big data problem, right? It is you have numerous places you're collecting data from, but there's no actual analysis of it. So for even the companies on the continent that are trying to do the actual work, you know, I run a publishing, I work with a publishing company, and I receive at least, from my quarter report, at least 500 pages on one song, you know, and you're looking for a tech to just simplify that data to know that, okay, is this person paying me what needs to be paid and what not? So essentially, it's like I said, we have the opportunity to present solutions to the world. So the question is like, what are we doing? Because even one of the problems that we have also is that you can't even get access legally to some certain types of document. You know, for the longest time, everybody sends you a report, but you don't know whether the report is correct. When VAS, I don't know if you know VAS, VAS is value-added service, which like the coloring backbone. So when you call, you hear music, you know. For the longest time, that was the biggest money maker for Nigerian artists. But we then, you know, when we ask and say, okay, this month I made, you know, 1 million naira, The next month, I'm making 500 naira. It's like, the economics is not adding up. Then we ask for data, then you send me Excel sheets. Then I'm like, how am I sure you didn't just put some numbers in it, right? But because that data was being controlled by people from India, the software and technology was closed. So you're just stuck with saying, oh, it's coming from their email. Let's assume it's authentic, right? So these are the kind of problems that even legally you're putting in your contract. As much as you want to audit, you don't even have the capacity to completely audit. So now going forward, the world is becoming enlightening. The power that we have, especially for the bigger 1%, is that now they sit at a position where they can demand for certain things because of that soft power, like I mentioned, and the influence that I mentioned. So I think that at every point in time, every professional understands where they are, and that informs how we negotiate. If you're a new artist, a new person, I have a contextualized conversation with you, asking you, what do you want to achieve in 5 years, right? I'm not going to be having conversation of ownership with you, because at that point it's 100% of zero. So it's like, are you ready to part with 40%, 30%, so that we can achieve what you want to achieve in 5 years? Or do you want to go down the rugged path and take another 10 years to get to your vision of 5 years? That's a conversation for you. But it's my job to walk you through those conversations and in context of your reality that you have. So for level playing field, I use data to have conversations. And I'll give you an example. I want to negotiate a brand deal for an artist. I use a software called SoundChat. What it does, it pulls all your brand insights and data analysis from everywhere. And I sit down there and I begin to do economics and whatever it is. What I'm going to quote for a local brand in Nigeria is different from what I'll quote for a brand from, from Switzerland or France or whatever. And that also now informs me to say, which is one of the things I want to also push out, is for a lot of African problems we want to solve, we need to start thinking in our local currency, right? I'm a Nigerian, you're a Nigerian, we produce, you're charging me $10,000. Are you lost? But then so, and it's the same thing, I went to France to have a conversation and I said, look, we can be partners. I can guarantee you that I will make you ₦1 million in 1 quarter. If you want to do that, let's do business. You can also guarantee me that you make me €1,000 in 1 quarter. Don't expect me to make you €1,000 in Nigeria. It's not going to, you're already giving me an uneven partnership. And which is how it has to work in different countries, because the more we start thinking in local currency, it is fairer for you to start doing marketing according to a budget that works, that actually now guarantees a return on investment on an investment. I'll give you an example. You want me to promote a song. You've given me a budget of $20,000. In Naira, every other day, $20,000 moves from 15 million to 20 million to 30 million to whatever it is. However, if I'm doing my marketing in 5 million Naira, I can easily postulate that maybe in another 6 months, I'm going to make 7 million Naira. So that's how data and, informs how we begin to demand for fair play and pay in the continent.
Mm-hmm. We've been having quite a great conversation up here, but it's a conversation, so I'd like mics to start moving around so we can rope you also in as we wind up this conversation. We want to hear your thoughts. If you have any comments, questions, or reactions, if there are any artists in the room, you're more than welcomed. Pick a mic, give us an in-depth sense of what it is like for you in the industry, because this is expert analysis. Chai, I want to hear from you.
Yes, my last words would be you need to invest in building a core audience, super fans. That's the real currency right now. And that's a reality all over the world. The whole industry right now is betting on super fans, because those fans will follow you even in hell. And they will stick to you no matter what. They will pay for what you are putting out. They will be loyal. So that's the audience that you need. You don't need necessarily, as Afi said, big numbers with fickle fans. You need super fans. And with these super fans, you can build a sustainable economy because digital will be the window, and then you can take them where you want, especially in terms of merchandising, in terms of concerts, in terms of many content that you'll be putting out. You must make sure that you are building this strong bond with your fans. They must have this priority in terms of access to you, and then you will monetize, and monetize properly. Because even right now, in Western countries, they are complaining about the micropayments that goes with streaming. So if you need to really if you want to really make things come full circle, it's important to invest in building a core audience. And everything comes from what you are putting out, your content, your music. Right now, we are in the attention economy. So what's your difference? What should I listen to you instead of listening to Drake? If you sound like Drake, I'd rather take the original than the copy. So it's important that we understand also as African artists, as African professionals trying to develop careers for African artists, that the originality is key nowadays because there is a huge competition for attention.
Afi?
Yes, so my last word would be there are not really perfect model of remuneration. So the model I would like would probably might not be the right one for someone that is bigger or a smaller artist. So it's come to each artist to find out what do I want? Do I want the fame? Do I want revenues, like fast revenue? Do I want to build the audience? And according to what you decide, you will start working toward that. What my objective? Do I want to grow an audience? I will pick the platform that I'm going to focus on according to that. Do I want to get money, fast money, even though I don't have the audience? There is a platform where I should focus on. So depends to each artist who first know how the industry work, how they can make money, and how they're gonna use every rouage, I don't know what to do. Every tips, maybe, yeah, every tips they will have to succeed in the industry.
Thank you so much. A round of applause for our panel. So we have mics going around. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what your thoughts are, what your questions are, what your criticism are. We have a hand up there, we have a hand there, and we have a hand there. Oh, wow, great. We were paying attention.
One, two, one, two. Thank you. You know what they say, technology is not your mother. So thank you. My name is Paul Atwine. I do international sports marketing here in Rwanda, but I do have a background in community management and artist management, particularly monetizing and publishing and managing artist brands. You raised, there's something that has been raised that has really stuck with me, which is the power metric. For the artists that I used to manage while working in Uganda, we used to, playlisting was quite a big thing, okay? So in terms of getting their music on specific playlists in different markets so that they get monetarity, working with influencers, especially in the European market in France, so that you can get the songs viral. But the thing is, in terms of the power dynamic, most of the guys that control these playlists, that have access to these influencer communities where they can actually get your content out there, very few of them are from Africa. They are based in Europe, they're based in USA. So you have someone not within the African market that has monetized your platform more than you who's in Africa. And I think for me, what I noticed, the key issue was there was a disparity between the data and then the vanity metrics. So we are so used to vanity metrics. So you'll find companies coming and telling you, oh, give us $2,000, we'll get you 10 seconds on a Times Square billboard. And someone will be there and they'll record it and you'll share it and all your fan base is like, oh yes, this person has made it. But in terms of impact for your brand, in terms of it like getting you out there and actually you being able to monetize that kind of exposure, I think for African creatives and artists, there's a bit of a disparity between the data and then how they can use it impactfully for their brands. I know even platforms like Spotify, they have a lot of sustainability and purpose-driven programs that are funded quite well. And there's just a shortage of artists who are thinking at that level that can even just like Tyler. Tyler was here in Rwanda in 2023. She came for the Giants of Africa Festival at the BK Arena. It's when she first performed Water on a live stage, and she did the water thing, and that's where the challenge picked up from on TikTok, and ever since then, she's aiming for the galaxies. So that is, again, that disparity between the data and the impact, like what I've done is impactful. So what advice would you give to creatives and artists, how they can use that data to make more impactful decisions? Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, this is very interesting because I think probably I can speak a bit, which you alluded to, is the lumpization, if there's a word like that, of everybody into world music. And I think that's the problem, right? And one of the things that, this other platform I spoke about at the beginning, when they came into Nigeria and wanted to set up, which now went into Africa, was one of the first things we told them was genre classification. We're very specific about it. There's Fuji music. It's not Afrobeats alone. There's Fuji, there's Afrobeat, there's Kwaito, there's this, there's that. And should I mention the platform? Because I don't know. But some of the distributors here, which are, when you're delivering to that particular platform, you see that they are the only ones that have detailed conversation about the metadata entering. And I see that one of those problems of the disparity is that we're under world music, which could be anything. So when the decision makers are pointing to say, where are we putting money into, it is whoever is in the room that says world music, right? The reason why Afrobeats became what Afrobeats was because DJ Edu and one other DJ in the UK fought so hard before, and that's where the argument of Afrobeats came, because they were like, so what do we call this music, right? And they just said, okay, Afrobeats, which now everybody was under Afrobeats. But that's because you needed to start getting played on the UK radio, and they worked with classification, which is that data. So I think for us, it is, we've done it before, it's happened. It is building what is for us, by us, and making those dictations so that we can now multiply and begin to have conversations and say, this is what needs to change. And so that's my opinion.
We have like 6 minutes on the clock, so we'll take a few more questions. Let's keep them really tight. There's a hand here.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Matt Billet, artist/lawyer, Kigali-based Cameroonian lawyer. And I wanted to make some comments a little bit. And I actually felt like people, like since the beginning of Access, master royalties were not talked about enough. And thank you guys for doing that. And for the metric and the best business model, I personally think that we should go back to digitally buying and selling music, because stream doesn't really work in the benefit of the smaller artists. And my thing was, why, and I'm talking from the French Africa's perspective, and my question will go to my colleague. Why will an artist be not independent? Since that, like, if you check from our standpoint, most record label, or no, let me just say it from that, like investors, first of all, investors are afraid, are really scared to invest. I'm talking specifically in the French Africa and especially in Cameroon, most of them are afraid to invest because they are not sure that there will be return on investment. And also, some labels are not even legally prepared because you might sign a contract with an artist. An artist will sign a contract with a label that is not even registered, legally registered, so legally doesn't exist. And they'll be acting like they will be working without even knowing most of the time what they do. And it has been proven over the years that the business model that the major record label that came to Africa, the model they had, did not really work for most of the artists that have been signed to those labels, and they ended up going back to independent. So I would ask, like, what will be that benefit for an artist, like for an African artist, to sign to a record label?
I think, like, which is part of the conversations of models we're talking about. Why do we need to adopt the model that the West is using, right? We have different economics on the continent. You have different funding models on the continent. Why are we not developing our own funding models that works for us, right? So I don't think the West model can work for the 99% that we have currently which is our job as lawyers, because law is a social engineer to fixing things. And one of my last words is that I feel like the last piece of the African to the world are the lawyers, right? It's because we understand from a very worldview perspective how these things should change. But for example, I'll tell you, why are we signing contract when you can tell someone to go and sit there in front of the traditional worship, say, if you take my money and run, and if you don't do what you're supposed to do, deliver on this thing. Why are you, I mean, it's like we need to think outside of the box to solve our problems. That's this thing. But fair play also to the investors. They have a right to be scared, because by the time you put money in, you go to the court tells you what is IP. That's where we come in to fix those problems.
Thank you so much.
I would just like to add that,
Chaye.
it's still relevant to sign with a major company, but it depends on the deal. If it's a licensing deal, for instance, or a distribution deal, or those specific deals that they have now through their label services, that's great. I think what we should study is hip-hop in the US, rap in the US. You still need the machine of major companies. Major companies are not the devil. It depends on how you deal with them. So the rappers have been smart enough in the US. They are all entrepreneurs. They were the ones who brought this model in the game. So they are entrepreneurs, so they sign specific deal that can benefit them, and they use the machine of the major company to cover their territory, which is very big, and the world. So that's it. If you want to upscale your business, at a point you need partners. Mm-hmm. So that's it. So you cannot do everything by yourself. That would be a mistake if we were championing that. But you need to be smart about your moves. Keep your IP, own your IP. Try to own the most you can regarding master rights, and move forward.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. A round of applause for our panelists. We have Afi, we had Chaye, we had Foza. They'll be around, they'll stick around. So in case we have any questions or we want to discuss with them, we can always find them after this session. Thank you once again. A round of applause for them as they get off stage.
All right, we're going to take that picture
a moment
before you guys
did not
leave the
happen if
stage.
there was no photo for it.